My wife cheated for charity. Does she think I'm stupid? You think you know someone after 12 years of marriage. You think you've seen every side of them, every quirk, every nuance. You get comfortable, too comfortable, maybe, and then, out of nowhere, your whole reality flips upside down. It started with a simple misstep. Her phone, left unlocked on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping. Really, I wasn't. But when you see a text notification pop up from someone named Vincent, well, curiosity gets the better of you. Especially when that message reads, "Last night was incredible. Can't wait for next time." Same donation amount. My heart stopped. 1,000 thoughts ran through my mind, and none of them were good. I could feel my palms sweating as I picked up the phone, my breath quickening. I scrolled through the messages, and what I saw was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. There were multiple texts, all from different men, and they weren't just casual conversations. There were graphic exchanges, things I never imagined my wife would be saying to another man, or multiple men. I couldn't believe it. My wife, Madeline, 38 years old, a school principal, a woman whose life revolved around shaping the minds of young children, was involved in some secret, sordid affair. The woman I had loved since we were in our 20s, who'd been by my side through thick and thin, was meeting up with other men, regularly. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The late-night meetings she claimed were school-related. The increased weekend conferences she had to attend. The sudden influx of extra cash she said was from a promotion. It was all a lie. Every damn thing. My stomach churned, and my world tilted on its axis. I waited, not because I was calm, but because I needed to know more. I needed the truth. The whole truth. A part of me clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, there was some explanation, some reasonable excuse for what I had just uncovered. That hope was the only thing keeping me from losing my mind. 2 hours later, Madeline walked through the door, her usual warm smile plastered across her face. But this time, that smile made my skin crawl. How could she look at me like that after everything she had done? I sat at the dining table, trying to maintain composure, but I knew the cracks were showing. She dropped her purse on the counter and walked over to me. "Hey, babe, you look like you've seen a ghost. Everything okay?" I couldn't do it. I couldn't play dumb anymore. I took a deep breath and slid her phone across the table. "Who's Vincent?" Her face paled in an instant. There it was, confirmation. She didn't even have to say a word. The guilt was written all over her face. Michael, don't. I cut her off, my voice harsher than I intended. "Don't even try to lie to me. I saw the messages, Madeline." "I know." She froze, her eyes darting to the phone, then back to me, as if searching for a way out. But there was none. She was caught, and there was no going back. "I can explain," she stammered, her voice shaky. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. "Explain? You can explain why you've been sleeping with other men behind my back. What the hell is wrong with you?" "Michael, please," she cried, her hands trembling. "It's not what you think." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Not what I think?" "I saw the texts, Madeline. You've been with multiple men. How could you do this to me?" She reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled away. "Please, Michael, let me explain." "It's not." "Not what?" I shot back. "Not cheating." She took a deep breath, her eyes welling up with tears. "It's for charity." I froze, blinking in disbelief. "What?" Madeline's eyes were wide, desperate. "It's for charity. I swear, everything I've been doing, it's for a cause." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "You're telling me you're cheating on me, for charity?" She nodded quickly, as if that made everything okay. "There's a secret group of married women. We meet with wealthy men, and they pay enormous amounts of money for," she paused, swallowing hard, "to be with us. And all of the money goes to charity." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "You expect me to believe this?" She rushed forward, her eyes pleading. "It's true. I swear, Michael. Every penny goes to feeding the homeless, to funding research for rare diseases. It's not just about that." She hesitated before continuing. "It's a noble cause. We're helping people." I was dumbfounded. This was too absurd, too insane. My wife was standing in front of me, justifying her infidelity as some kind of noble sacrifice. My mind couldn't even begin to wrap around the insanity of it. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, pacing around the kitchen, my hands pulling at my hair. "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." Madeline's face was pale, her hands trembling. "I didn't want to hurt you, Michael. I never intended to hurt you. But the money, it's doing so much good. We've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Think about all the people we're helping." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was actually trying to justify this. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice low and dangerous. You've been sleeping with other men, for money, and instead of seeing it for what it is, you're calling it a charity act? Her lip quivered, and she nodded. Yes. I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. You've lost your mind. Madeline's eyes widened, her desperation palpable. Michael, please. You have to understand. I didn't do it for myself. I did it to help people who need it. We've saved lives, don't you see? No, I growled, stepping closer to her. What I see is my wife betraying me. You lied. You cheated. And now you're trying to hide behind this charity nonsense. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I wasn't moved. Not this time. I need you to leave, I said, my voice cold, unyielding. I can't even look at you right now. Michael, no, please. She grabbed my arm, sobbing. Don't do this. I love you. I never stopped loving you, I swear. I pulled away from her grip, disgusted. Get out, Madeline. She left that night. Her tear-streaked face burned into my memory as I stood by the window, watching her drive away. My mind was spinning in a whirlwind of disbelief, anger, and confusion. How could she justify cheating as some twisted form of charity? What kind of world had I been living in without realizing how deep this rabbit hole went? The house was eerily quiet after she left, and the silence pressed down on me. The woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we had built, it had all been a lie. But one thing was clear, the truth was far more twisted than I ever imagined. And this was just the beginning. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind would flash back to Madeline's confession, the surreal idea that my wife had justified her infidelity as a noble sacrifice for charity. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. This wasn't some selfless act. She wasn't saving lives. She was lying, cheating, and hiding behind some ridiculous moral excuse. By the time morning came, I had to know more. My head was spinning, my stomach churned, but I needed answers. If what she said was true, there had to be some kind of trail, some evidence beyond her insane justification. Was she really part of a group of women doing this? Was the money really going to charity? Or was this just the tip of the iceberg, something even more twisted than I could imagine? I grabbed my laptop and began digging. I knew Madeline's social media, her work emails, even her phone password from years of shared passwords and trust. But now I was hacking into her world, piecing together the details of the life she had been living in secret. It didn't take long to find something suspicious. A few hours into my search, I came across an email thread between Madeline and a woman named Evelyn. The subject line alone made my stomach turn. Monthly meeting, new donor opportunities. What kind of married women's charity was this? I opened the thread and began reading. The emails were vague, coded, even, but there was no mistaking the underlying meaning. They discussed meeting locations, client preferences, and donations. It wasn't just cheating. This was an organized operation. I kept scrolling until I found something that stopped me cold, a spreadsheet. Attached to one of the emails was a list of all the donors and the amounts they had given. I clicked on it, my heart pounding. My eyes widened as I scanned the names. Vincent Larson, $50,000. Richard Connors, $30,000. Mark Reynolds, $75,000. It went on and on. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, just like she had said. But that wasn't what shocked me the most. Near the bottom of the list, highlighted in bold, was the name Michael Harris, $10,000. My own name. I stared at the screen, my heart beating in my ears. What the hell was this? I'd never given any donation like this. I didn't even know these people. But there it was, plain as day, my name, my money. It didn't make sense. Until it did. I began pulling up our bank statements, checking transactions I hadn't looked at closely in the past year. There were large sums of money missing, amounts I had assumed had gone into investments or savings accounts. But no, they were gone, withdrawn and rerouted to a mysterious account under my wife's name. I felt sick. Not only had Madeline been cheating on me, but she'd been using my money to fund this underground operation. She'd been withdrawing from our joint accounts, funneling cash into her secret life without my knowledge. And to top it off, she had the audacity to call this entire thing a charitable act. My mind raced, filled with questions that had no easy answers. Was this about money for her? Power? Or had she somehow convinced herself she was doing good while betraying the person who had stood by her all these years? But before I could even begin to process the betrayal, another horrifying thought crossed my mind. How deep did this go? How many women were involved? Were they all as deceived as their husbands? How many lives were being destroyed in the name of this twisted cause? I couldn't let it go. I needed more information, and the only person who could provide it was Madeline. Later that evening, I called Madeline. I didn't want her to know how much I had uncovered, so I played it cool, asking her to come over and talk things through. Despite everything, she agreed. Part of me wondered if she still thought she could convince me of her twisted rationale. When she arrived, I was calm, at least on the surface, but underneath, I was boiling. She sat across from me at the dining table, her face lined with stress and guilt. "Michael," she started, "I know what I did was wrong, but you have to understand, it wasn't about hurting you. I don't care about your excuses, Madeline," I cut her off. "I care about the truth, the real truth." Her eyes flickered with confusion, but I could see the nervousness behind them. "I've already told you the truth," she said slowly, as if weighing her words. I leaned forward, folding my hands together. "So, it's all about charity, right? The money goes to feeding the homeless, curing diseases, all noble causes?" She nodded quickly, almost too quickly. "And this group of women, how many of you are there?" Her hesitation was all I needed to know she was still hiding something. "I don't know exactly, maybe 20 or 30. It's not just us, though. We're connected to a larger network." "A network?" I repeated, my voice icy. "And what exactly does this network do? Because from what I've found, it looks a hell of a lot like organized crime." Her face drained of color. "No, it's not like that." I slammed my hand on the table, the anger bubbling over. "Don't lie to me. I found the emails, Madeline. I found the spreadsheet with the donors' names, including mine. How long have you been stealing from me?" She gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Michael, how long?" Tears spilled from her eyes, and she collapsed in the chair, sobbing. "I didn't want to, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "So, what?" I snapped. "You thought you'd just steal from me, cheat on me, and call it charity? That's your idea of a noble sacrifice?" "I needed the money to keep the operation running," she sobbed. "We had so many donors, so many people depending on us. I couldn't just stop. But I never meant to hurt you, I swear." I shook my head in disbelief. "You're unbelievable." But even as the rage coursed through me, there was something darker lurking beneath the surface, something that nagged at me. Madeline's guilt seemed genuine, twisted, yes, but not entirely malicious. Could she really believe she was doing something good, even while destroying everything we had built? I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care. I had already made up my mind. I needed revenge. I needed to stop this insanity before it spread any further. I wasn't just going to expose Madeline, I was going to tear the entire operation down, make sure every single person involved paid for what they had done. But first, I needed a plan. And if I played my cards right, I'd be the one making the ultimate sacrifice to bring the entire house of cards crashing down. I spent the night tossing and turning, consumed by thoughts of vengeance. The audacity of Madeline and her underground charity operation festered in my mind like an untreated wound. I felt torn between my love for the woman I once thought I knew and the seething rage boiling just beneath the surface. But there was no question about it, I had to act. The next morning, I woke up with a singular focus to destroy her scheme and the lies that had enveloped our lives. I needed to devise a plan that would expose Madeline and her cohorts, something that would not only dismantle their operations but also ensure she understood the full extent of her betrayal. I spent hours on the internet, diving deeper into the murky waters of this underground charity network. I began compiling names, emails, and any links I could find. I even created a spreadsheet of my own, mirroring the one I had found in Madeline's emails. The more I discovered, the more I realized just how vast this operation was. It was like peeling back the layers of an onion. With every layer, the stench of deceit only grew stronger. I learned that this network operated like a shadowy marketplace, with married women auctioning off their time to wealthy men who believed they were helping save the world. But in reality, they were just paying to get their rocks off. I also discovered a private chat group where the women and their clients discussed upcoming meetings, the amount of money they expected to raise, and the various charities they claimed to support. This was where I would strike. If I could get access to this chat group, I could gather enough information to expose everything. But how? In a moment of inspiration, I remembered Madeline's laptop was still logged into her email account. I quietly waited for her to leave for a meeting with her charity friends, and then I pounced. I quickly made my way to her office and started rifling through her desk. It didn't take long to locate her laptop. As I opened it, my heart raced. After a few moments of intense searching, I found the chat group. But I wasn't just going to read, I needed to create a profile that would allow me to communicate without raising any suspicions. Using my knowledge of her passwords, I set up a new account with a name that would blend in seamlessly, CharitySeeker93. I joined the chat and observed the conversations buzzing around me. I noticed women talking about their clients, sharing stories of their exploits, and boasting about the money they were bringing in. My blood boiled with each passing message, but I remained calm, knowing I was playing the long game. After a few days of lurking in the shadows, I decided it was time to initiate my plan. I crafted a message, something that would lure them into a trap. I typed out an invitation to a high-stakes charity event I claimed I was organizing. I described a glamorous venue, enticing bidding opportunities for the wealthy donors, and an air of exclusivity. I sent the message and watched the chat explode with excitement. They loved the idea. Women began discussing the men they'd approach, the donations they could expect, and how much fun they would have. It was sickening. I also saw Madeline's name pop up in the conversation. My heart sank, but I knew I needed her to buy into this completely. So, I made sure to reference her, the key player in making this event happen. I praised her expertise and her unique position in the charity world. As the days progressed, the chat grew more and more enthusiastic. I had woven my trap tightly, but I still had to make sure I was ready for the next move. I started gathering everything I could find, photos of conversations, screenshots of messages, and even saved video calls. I was building a solid case that would expose Madeline and her charity, but I wasn't finished yet. I wanted this to be a spectacle. I wanted to hurt them the way they had hurt me. So, I planned a dramatic reveal, one that would not only expose Madeline but also dismantle the entire network. On the day of the so-called charity event, I arranged to have a videographer present. I reached out to a local news outlet, posing as a concerned citizen who had uncovered a fraudulent charity operation. I painted a vivid picture of the event, ensuring they understood how large the scale of this scandal was. They were intrigued and agreed to send a reporter. With everything in place, I waited anxiously for the day of the event to arrive. I pictured Madeline and her friends arriving in their designer dresses, full of excitement, ready to rub elbows with the wealthy donors. They had no idea that the truth was about to come crashing down on them. As I sat in my car across the street from the venue, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of exhilaration and dread. The plan was unfolding perfectly, but a small part of me couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. Was I really ready to destroy everything? But then I thought about the lies, the betrayal, and how she had manipulated not just me but all those men who believed they were contributing to a good cause. I shook my head, steeling my resolve. This was about more than just me, it was about the truth. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the city, I took a deep breath and prepared to set my plan into motion. Tonight, Madeline would face the consequences of her actions, and the world would see her for who she truly was. With my phone buzzing in my pocket, I glanced at the time. It was nearly showtime. I checked my gear one last time, ensuring the camera was recording and the news crew was en route. Tonight would be the night everything changed. Madeline thought she was on top of the world, but I was about to bring her crashing down, and I couldn't wait to watch her face when the truth was revealed. It was time to unleash the beast. As I approached the venue, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Glistening chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a soft glow on the elegantly dressed guests mingling in the lobby. A lavish banner reading Charity Gala for Humanity draped across the entrance, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How could she do this? How could she wear this mask of philanthropy while betraying me and countless others? I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the plan. The videographer was already inside, positioned to capture every moment. I had given him specific instructions: wait until the moment was right, until Madeline and her friends were fully immersed in their delusion, before revealing the truth. I blended into the crowd, feigning interest in the festivities. A jazz band played softly in the background, and the clinking of glasses filled the air as the guests celebrated their supposed contributions to society. I spotted Madeline from across the room, laughing and chatting with a group of women, all of whom were oblivious to the chaos that was about to ensue. Seeing her in that moment, basking in the glory of her deception, fueled my anger. She wore a stunning red dress that hugged her figure perfectly, her hair cascading in soft waves. But beneath that beauty was a web of lies that would soon unravel. I glanced down at my phone. The time was approaching. Finally, the moment arrived. I received a message from the videographer. He was ready. With my heart racing, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I made my way to the stage, where a microphone sat poised for the evening's announcements. "Ladies and gentlemen," I called out, my voice cutting through the chatter, "may I have your attention, please?" The crowd turned, confusion etched on their faces. Madeline's laughter died down as she noticed me. I saw recognition flicker in her eyes, followed by a flash of panic. I know you all came here tonight for a noble cause, believing you were contributing to something meaningful, I continued, watching her shift uneasily. But what you don't know is that you're part of a massive scam, a charity built on deception and infidelity. Gasps echoed through the room, and I could see Madeline's friends exchanging worried glances. Madeline, I called out, locking eyes with her. Why don't you tell everyone about the secret meetings you've been having? The rich men you've been sleeping with, all while claiming it was for charity? A stunned silence fell over the crowd as Madeline's expression shifted from shock to anger. She stepped forward, trying to regain control of the narrative. You don't understand, she shouted, her voice trembling. I did this for the greater good. This is about helping people. But the facade was crumbling. I gestured to the videographer, who stepped into view, holding the camera high. You see, Madeline, I've got proof. I've been documenting everything, the messages, the meetings, and the names of all the men you've been involved with. I clicked through the slides on the projector behind me, revealing screenshots of her chats, the bids she had made on behalf of her so-called charity, and even photos of her with these wealthy clients. The crowd murmured in disbelief, and I could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on her. Madeline's face turned crimson. You can't do this. You don't know what you're talking about. But the tide had turned. Actually, I do know, I shot back, the vindication flooding my veins. You've been lying to me, lying to these people, and lying to yourself. You've convinced yourself that your betrayal was a noble sacrifice, but the truth is, you're just a con artist hiding behind a charity. The room erupted into chaos. People began to shout questions, demanding answers from Madeline. The air thickened with outrage as guests confronted her about the implications of her actions. Some were visibly shaken, while others expressed disbelief. I can explain, Madeline shouted over the din, but her voice was drowned out by the noise. A wealthy donor I recognized from previous events stepped forward, his face a mixture of anger and disappointment. You took advantage of us. We trusted you. I was helping, she insisted, desperation creeping into her tone. But it was too late. The truth had been laid bare, and her carefully constructed world was crumbling before her eyes. The guests began to filter out, their evening ruined by the revelation, and I watched the scene unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and heartbreak. Madeline stormed towards me, fury blazing in her eyes. You think you've won, don't you? You think you've exposed me? You're just a jealous husband who couldn't keep his wife happy. The accusation stung, but I remained resolute. I wasn't the one cheating, Madeline. I didn't betray you. You did this to yourself. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You've ruined everything. This charity was doing good. You're going to regret this. But I couldn't feel regret, I felt liberated. I had taken the power back, and I wouldn't let her manipulate me any longer. Goodbye, Madeline, I said, turning away as the reality of our marriage shattered around us. As I left the venue, I could hear the sound of the party spiraling into disarray behind me. The truth had been revealed, and Madeline's world was collapsing. I walked away, leaving behind the woman who had once been my partner, my love, but had transformed into someone unrecognizable. The road ahead was uncertain, but I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in years. I was ready to move forward, to rebuild my life without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. I knew the battle wasn't over. There would be consequences for both of us. But I had taken a stand, and I wouldn't let Madeline's deception define me any longer. With each step, I felt lighter, ready to embrace whatever came next. The days that followed the gala were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. I had exposed Madeline's betrayal to the world, but the fallout was far more complex than I had anticipated. As I sat on the couch, a heavy silence enveloped our once vibrant home, now a shell of memories and unfulfilled promises. Madeline had stormed out of the gala, and I hadn't seen her since. Her friends, the ones who had once supported her, were now ghosting her, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The media caught wind of the story, and the headlines quickly painted her as a villain, a cheating wife who exploited her marital status for profit. It was all over social media, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and pity for her. But my satisfaction was short-lived. The reality of my own situation began to sink in. I was now a man whose marriage had become a public spectacle. The whispers behind my back were relentless. How could he let this happen? He must not have been enough for her. I tried to ignore them, but they gnawed at my self-esteem like a persistent itch. A week later, while I was at work, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Madeline. My heart raced, unsure of what to expect. After everything that had happened, a part of me was still hoping for a semblance of the woman I had loved. We need to talk. Can we meet? I hesitated but ultimately decided it was time to face the woman who had turned my life upside down. I replied, setting a time and place, my stomach a tumultuous storm of nerves and dread. We met at a small coffee shop, a neutral ground that felt fraught with tension. When Madeline walked in, she looked different, drained, with dark circles under her eyes, dressed in a simple sweater and jeans, a stark contrast to the glamorous woman I'd seen at the gala. "I didn't expect you to agree to meet," she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she sat down across from me. "I didn't expect to be the one exposed either," I replied, my tone sharp. "What do you want, Madeline?" She took a deep breath, and I could see the weight of her choices crashing down on her. "I want to apologize," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I thought I was doing something good. I wanted to help people, but I got lost in it. I didn't think about how it would affect you." Her words hung in the air between us. "You think this was charity?" I shot back, incredulous. "You used people's trust for your own gain. You put on a facade and dragged me into it." I know," she exclaimed, her voice rising with frustration. "But I truly believed I was making a difference. At first, it was just a way to make money, but then, I convinced myself it was for the greater good." "And your infidelity? What was that for? A noble sacrifice?" I leaned back, crossing my arms, awaiting her justification. "It spiraled out of control," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I got caught up in the excitement, the attention. I thought it was harmless at first, but I was wrong." I stared at her, torn between the anger I felt and the remnants of love still buried deep within me. "And what about your lovers? Did they think they were just donating to charity?" Madeline paused, her shoulders slumping. "I lied to them, too. They thought they were just with me. I never intended for it to hurt anyone, least of all you." As I looked into her eyes, I could see the confusion and regret swirling within her. But I also saw something else, a glimmer of the woman I had fallen in love with. "Madeline," I said slowly, "you have to face the consequences of your actions. I can't go back to the way things were. Trust has been shattered." "I understand," she replied, her voice small, "but I want to change. I need to make this right, not just for you but for everyone I've hurt." I considered her words. "And how do you plan to do that?" "I'll donate everything I've made from this. I'll go to every person affected, and I'll help rebuild the charity properly, without deceit." Her sincerity was palpable, but I still felt a wall between us. "Please," she added, "give me a chance to prove I can be better." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision ahead of me. Part of me wanted to walk away, to cut ties entirely, to rid myself of the hurt she had caused. But another part, a part that still cared for her, wondered if it was possible for redemption. "Let's take this one step at a time," I finally said, meeting her gaze. "You have to show me through your actions, not just words." Madeline nodded, her eyes filled with hope. "I will, I promise." As we parted ways that day, I felt an odd mix of relief and uncertainty. I didn't know what the future held for us. Maybe it was too late to salvage our marriage, or maybe this was the beginning of a new chapter, one that didn't include betrayal but healing. I began to rebuild my life, focusing on myself and what I wanted for the future. I took up a new hobby, surrounded myself with supportive friends, and even sought therapy to unpack the emotional fallout from Madeline's betrayal. Slowly, I began to feel whole again. Months passed, and Madeline did follow through on her promises. She worked diligently to make amends, and I watched from a distance as she poured her energy into rebuilding her life. One day, she reached out, asking if we could meet again. This time, I was open to it. The wounds were still fresh, but time had softened the edges. I realized that forgiveness was not just for her, it was for me, too. As I walked into the coffee shop where we had met before, I felt a mix of hope and caution. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready to face it, no longer the man bound by betrayal, but a man who had found strength in vulnerability.